If you have not read this or seen the movie and you're trying to figure out which one to do first, I highly recommend seeing the movie first because I know a lot of people loved it who did not read this book. Where to even start? Okay, so if you don't follow me on Instagram, then you don't know that I'm obsessed with this. Obsessed with this book. I read it in March because the movie was coming out in May. The movie has now come out, obviously, and that's what this is going to be about. Oh my God. This song, stop it. I'm too excited. I watched the movie. I genuinely was very excited initially to make this video because I love this book so much and I thought I was going to love the movie. I did not. I'm so incredibly disappointed, and I think that's very common for people who love to read the books first like I do. There's no way to get any and everything that's been inside of the book in the movie. It's just not going to happen. I think I really wasn't expecting so much to be left out though. Like so much. The movie felt like the Cliff Notes version of this book, and I'm just genuinely so disappointed. I watched it when it first came out on Wednesday. All right, really quickly, I'm disappointed. I really am. I just think my very biggest takeaway is that we missed so much of the depth that the book had. It probably would have been a lot better of a show because we could have really gotten more, but I have so much to say. Ultimately, I'm disappointed. If I had never read the book but just seen the movie, I probably would have liked it, but didn't hate it. Didn't love it. And I tried today to watch it again, and I can only get halfway. I'm like, there's just no point. I have 1.5 pages of notes, and we're going to go through them. Also, how cute is this cover? How cute is this cover? I listened to the audiobook the first time. It is an incredible audiobook. Robinne Lee is the narrator, and I read an article about her where she's like cringing about her Hayes voice, but I actually really like her Hayes voice. I'm dying to reread this now. This is just so good. It has become one of my absolute favorite romance novels. It's very sad. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, initial thoughts are that Hayes, this is one of the biggest disappointments is that they left out so much of the depth of the relationship, but Hayes was my biggest disappointment because he just didn't have that swagger. In the book, he was 20. I have ideas of why I think they changed his age, and it's not what I originally thought it was going to be, but we'll talk about that later, I think. But he was 20. But one of the main reasons I loved this so much is because Hayes was so mature, especially for a 20-year-old. And in here, he was just like so confident, and he was so witty and just kind of had just that bad boy swagger. I don't really have another word for it. And that was incredibly disappointing for me right off the get. That's the very first thing I wrote. I also wrote that I needed to lower my expectations. They were so high, and that's not great, especially because I had just read this 2 months before and like really started the obsession. If you have not read this or seen the movie and you're trying to figure out which one to do first, I highly recommend seeing the movie first because I know a lot of people loved it who did not read this book. Expectations were very high, and that's just not helpful, you know? They changed a lot of the relationship dynamics. One, I didn't love there's a couple, but I really didn't like that they changed the plot with Izzy. I did really love seeing Selene and Izzy's relationship. It was so cute, so sweet. I really loved that. You can tell there's a lot of respect there, and they just were so close. I genuinely really loved that in the movie. But I didn't love that they changed Izzy's storyline because in the book, Izzy is like, I think 12 and obsessed with Hayes. And that was a really big thing because she felt this great amount of deception from her mom because how could she be in love with someone who she was in love with? Izzy was obsessed with Hayes, and how could her mom do that to her and then hide it from her also? And that was a huge point in the book that we missed out. And so that was really unfortunate. I really didn't like how much that changed. Another thing I didn't like was the relationship between Selene and her ex-husband Daniel in the movie, because in the book, there were times where Daniel was not very supportive of Selene and Hayes, but ultimately he was really a rock for her when her and Izzy were going through that whole thing of like not being used to having paparazzi around and the celebrity of that. And I really enjoyed that Daniel was very supportive. And I think there was like one specific line. He was just like, I wish you would have told me sooner so I could have been there to support you. And You did not get that in the movie at all. She like despises her ex-husband, and there's not any mutual respect there at all. You did also not get I think they're just going to keep spewing. You also didn't get the dynamic of how you didn't really understand in the movie that Daniel's new wife was significantly younger, and how there was that double standard there, because it was okay for Daniel to be with his new wife that was a lot younger, and it wasn't really frowned upon, whereas it really was with Selene and Hayes. There was a double standard there, and that was a very big moment, because Selene was just kind of like, fuck everybody, I don't really care what they think, because it's celebrated with Daniel, right? And it's not with her. It was incredibly frowned upon. And so I hate that we missed that too, because that was a very big thing for Selene. Something else that I recently saw today was that the author did not help in writing the screenplay, which I thought was very interesting. I don't know why she was not involved in the movie, and it shows for sure. I love Anne Hathaway. I really like Nick Galatine. I think that's how you say his last name. I've been watching a lot of interviews, and Anne Hathaway like made a song about his last name for people to remember it, and I still can't remember it. I think it's Galatine, like magazine. Anyway, love them both. That is no disrespect to them for them, but they also lacked that chemistry. I know, because I've watched so many interviews, that they've become good friends, and I think that that's so incredible. But that's what I got from them, was just friendship. You did not get that passion. You did not get any of that. And I actually didn't even buy that they were in love. And I asked my mom, who loved the movie, who has not read the book, and she's like, yeah, totally, I bought that they were in love. But I just didn't. I didn't feel it. Something I really, really hate that they did with Hayes is they used his age and inexperience kind of as a joke. I hated more than anything that scene in her gallery, and he just buys everything. They kind of said how he liked art and he liked going to museums, and then he got there and he's like, I'm just gonna buy everything. I don't really give a fuck or respect any of these artists. And she even kind of said something about that, and then it was dismissed really quickly. She was just like, kind of like, okay, yeah, that's fine. That was not true to Hayes' character, and it also was not true to Selene's character. She was very passionate about her business, and I just hated that scene so much. It was like, okay, this like rich celebrity, 25-year-old, 24-year-old's coming in here, doesn't give a shit about it. Like spaghetti art, he called it, on the wall, and I really hated that, because again, that was not Hayes. I wrote that Hayes' character was incredibly sophisticated and cultured and thoughtful and self-aware in this book. And you didn't get any of that, especially in that scene. And I really hated that. Talking about hating scenes, I also really hated the scene where Selene is explaining her relationship and her breakup with Daniel. And I kind of touched on that already, but Selene was not this broken woman. Like, she very much had healed from all of that relationship. She had learned from it, and that was incredibly apparent in the book. They just didn't portray her very well in that scene. They also Americanized her a lot. She really, I don't know that it was talked a lot that she was French, but that definitely was a thing. She was just very like elegant, and I keep saying sophisticated, but she also was. She was very sophisticated, and she was very successful, and they didn't really show that much. I genuinely did like how they depicted her. I think Anne Hathaway did a great job of Selene, but it still wasn't completely accurate to who she was in the book. And I hated that scene. That scene was awful. Hayes was incredibly mature and confident, and that did not translate into the movie at all. The setup of their relationship was very different. It was supposed to start off very casual, and they kind of showed Hayes as this immature, lovesick puppy. And I really didn't like that either, because he was the one who was like, let's keep this casual. I'm a celebrity. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm enjoying this initially. And their first date, there was this like play on it like just being lunch that was so delicious in the book, and we didn't get that either. We're not going to get everything, I know that, but I really enjoyed that. And it was very different from going to her house and her making him sandwiches. The biggest difference is this book had so much depth. It was so real. It was so raw. And I was expecting them to make it a little bit more rom-com-y. That was like my biggest fear. And they didn't really do that. So that's great. But there was no depth in the relationship. Like I said, I didn't buy it. And I think I had made a video saying that she so perfectly depicted the love that I wanted in my life because their relationship was just so amazing. There was so much respect and the communication overall. I mean, he was a lot younger than her. He was 20 years younger than her, but it still was an incredibly mature relationship. And you could tell that they just really loved and respected each other. And you just missed all that depth in the movie. This really should have been a show. I think it would have been significantly more successful if they hadn't cut out so much of they just like scooped out all these great chunks and threw them out. And it was just, that's what you get. I understand that's what you get, but it was disappointing. I didn't cry. If you follow me on Instagram, I say all the time how I cry at like every book, every movie, every show. I am a big crier. At the end of this, I was just like, I didn't feel a lot. I didn't connect to them as a couple, and I didn't cry. And that says a lot. We miss out on Hayes' relationship with Izzy, and that was sad. There was a moment when they first tell Izzy how they're in a relationship, and of course, like I said, they changed her character arc in the entire thing, but she was just so upset with her mother because she felt so much deception, and Hayes kind of sat her down, and I don't remember exactly how that went, but he was so sweet with her. He just made everything okay. He kind of smoothed that over and like really showed his maturity again that we didn't get. And I really was upset that we didn't get that scene. I was looking forward to seeing that scene. We also missed all of the stuff about Oliver. Oliver did make me a little bit uncomfortable in this book, but that's the reality also, and we just didn't get any of that, and so that was a little upsetting. I wanted to see them get into the argument. Oh my god, and Oliver's sister. We missed all of that. I forgot about that. I didn't buy their sexual, not only did I not buy their relationship and their love, but the sexual tension just like didn't do anything for me. Even when like the scenes where they were like very intensely making out, it didn't do anything for me. I just didn't feel it. I will say I did really enjoy the scene when they were in the hotel and the first time she goes out to see him. I did enjoy that scene. I thought that was really cute. And I really, really enjoyed him telling her, he like told her about how he felt like he was a joke because he was meeting a celebrity that he really idolized, and he thought that they were there to see him and like to maybe collaborate with Hayes, but he was there for basically a photo shoot with his daughter because it was his daughter's birthday. And he teared up in that scene in the movie, and I thought the way that she comforted him was just like really sweet. I liked that. I loved all the August Moon concert scenes. That was kind of cool. I don't like how they met because it was better in the book. She didn't go into his trailer. That was whatever. I can get over that one, but didn't really love that. I typically like movie adaptations. It's like you're never going to be 100% pleased as a reader because you just can't get all of the detail that you get into a book. You just can't. But I just was so disappointed, and that was really disappointing because the ending, we didn't talk about the ending. Okay. I did really enjoy the fact that we got 2 separate endings. It was kind of nice to see both worlds. This is a sad ending. Not to spoil it for you, but if I'm telling you you're getting a different ending, it's obvious that they don't end up together in this book, and that was devastating. That last scene, sobbed. So I did actually like that we saw them together. People were upset the most about that after all that, they didn't end up together. And I liked that because it just wasn't going to happen. To me, it was very obvious. And I think that that's why they changed his age too, because they knew that they were going to have them end up together. In the book, he initially was 20. And if he had been 20 years old and they had only had those 5 years apart from each other, he still would have only been 25 versus him being 29 or 30 in the movie. And so he wouldn't have had enough time to really get all of the experiences that he needed to get, I think. Whereas in the movie, I think he did. And it was like, okay, it was time to come back together, rekindle, see what can happen. So I really genuinely loved that we got to see both. It's like you can kind of choose which ending you want out of it, really. And I like that. Overall, disappointed. I do want to reread this at some point, not right now, but I would love to be able to read this again and compare again. And maybe I'll make another video when I do read this, or even just a video about this, because this book is gold. If you have not read this, please read it. And I think that that's all that I have to say. I hope you liked this. I really wanted to make this, like I said initially, because I thought that I was going to be so excited to talk about it. And I hate talking about things I don't like. I really do. I find it very hard because I know Anne Hathaway and that whole production team just put their whole heart and soul into it. And so many people related to it. But yeah, please read the book if you haven't. It's so good. Like, subscribe, do all the things. I do have an Instagram account that I'm significantly more active on. I'm still trying to figure out the whole YouTube thing. The editing is harder than I thought it was going to be. But thank you if you watched this, and I will see you next time.